What's up, everybody? It is Chris Olson and Chris Treese with Delta Consulting, and we are going to be talking today about quality control and quality management on larger projects and how to maintain it from the start of the job to the finish of the job. How are you doing today, Chris?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a long day. I'm glad we got to do this, and I'm excited to jump in.
Cool. Let's do it.
Sweet. So what I want to do is kind of give those people listening an idea of how, when we run large projects, you especially running larger general contracting style projects, how you maintain both quality and client consistency with expectations and quality throughout your whole project. So starting all the way at the beginning, going all the way to the end. So the first thing that comes to mind for me, the design and pre-construction phase. Talk to me about what you do during those early phases to set yourself up for success for the rest of the project.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would actually say that it probably starts even earlier than that. Especially we try to work with our marketing team and make sure that we are educating clients before they ever come to us. Because if there's one thing that is a really big disparity, it's knowledge of what we do every day. Because most clients, they have what they see on HGTV, right? They have, oh, we can get an entire kitchen, a set of kitchen cabinets for $8,000. And from IKEA in 2012, you probably could. That's not really the case anymore. Or they see, oh, these people come in and they flip a whole kitchen remodel in 3 days. Again, is it possible? Yes. Is that the norm for the vast majority of things? No. And so they've been set to look at the Hollywood version of reality where we have to re-educate them on what reality actually looks like. And so our blogs, our content that we produce for Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, all of that is going to be tiered towards educating people on what does a process look like, what are the ins and outs, what are the biggest headaches. And so we try and get ahead of that before they even contact us. Obviously, that won't happen for every client. Some people will just Google our name and that's who we come up, and we're thankful that we've got 5-star reviews. And so they'll just come and call and start the sales process. The next step is as soon as we get in contact with them, they're in our CRM. We use Connect. Kyle's great. He takes care of us. He makes sure that as soon as someone is in our ecosystem, they're starting to get drip campaigns. And so they're starting to get that same educational material. Hey, here's what to look for when designing your outdoor space. Hey, here's the ins and outs. Hey, this is what stuff could do. We're going to start pushing towards, hey, what does this stuff cost realistically? From there, anytime we meet, we try and set expectations. So before we schedule, if you just call in, you don't talk to one of our sales guys immediately, typically. You schedule something, hopefully within an hour, but we don't expect our guys to drop what they're doing, especially on like if they're putting together a proposal or something for someone else. I don't want them dropping what they're doing and trying to go in and out of flow state on different tasks. Multitasking is typically far less efficient. But we try and schedule that. We get a call for our guys, and we're going to set up exactly what our process looks like. So we know that anything over $50,000, and a lot of the projects under, but definitely anything over that mark, we're not going to just sell you the job. We're going to go through a design phase. We're going to charge for that design phase. And we're going to lay out what every step of the project looks like ahead of time with realistic timelines so that people know, hey, if you call us, what happens to us a lot is we'll get people that start to call at the end of April and they're saying, can we have our backyard done by Independence Day?
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not possible. I mean, really almost at that point, like you're talking 8 weeks. If everything was in stock and you were willing to pay all the rush orders to get people to move and the subs were willing to, maybe. But there's just not going to be any planning. It's not going to go smoothly, and so it's not worth it.
Yeah. So I really like that. And one of the things I'm curious about is you talked about how you pre-educate people before you even talk to them. Like obviously, ideally, they're seeing your content. They've seen you on Facebook. They've seen YouTube videos, whatever. So they kind of have an idea of what you do and what you offer and what the process looks like, what percentage, if you had to guess, of your clients actually show up to that first phone call or that first in-person consult and have a realistic idea of what their job's actually going to cost?
Definitely still in the minority, 30% maybe
Okay.
know what it's going to cost. And honestly, even I'd say less than half of people, probably that 30% mark, still
Hmm.
have watched much of our content.
Yeah.
It does happen, and it makes life a lot easier. We just finished a big project for a client that called and said, when she called us, she's like, I've been watching you for 2 years. You're the only one I want to do it. Come do this project.
Gotta love
We've
that when
already,
somebody is already sold before they call.
yeah, we built the trust at that point, right?
Yeah.
So that makes life a lot easier. But no, it's still definitely the minority of clients because most
Okay.
people, again, that ignorance, they don't know what they don't know, and so they don't know how much planning can go into a bigger project.
Yeah, absolutely. And on this topic as a whole, like both expectations and quality control and like making sure those things line up. If somebody comes into the process and they know a lot about it, they're ahead of the curve. But are you talking to people about the cost of their project, the scope of the project, like right out the gate? Or if somebody's going to go into a design phase, at what point during those kind of initial consultations and conversations do they start to have a better idea of total cost, of what things are going to look like, of what the timeline looks like, and a lot of those details?
We're going to talk about price in a very broad sense on call one. We're always going to ask the question, do you have a budget in mind? A lot of people aren't comfortable giving that unless they've already built the trust with us because contractors in general have had a bad name in the
Mhm.
past. And if you say my budget's 100,000, well, they're going to be used car salesmen and they're going to try and sell you a
Mhm.
120 project, right?
Yep.
We actually try to build that trust because it's really easy, especially in outdoor living, to dream really big.
Mhm.
We can spend $1 million in your backyard.
Yeah.
It's not a very common budget in Missouri.
Fair enough.
So we want to know, hey, where do you want to be around? Even if you're just willing to give me a range, hey, I want to stay under 100. Hey, 2 to 3. Hey, whatever. We can start to
Mhm.
design and guide towards that.
Mhm.
Where if we don't have that knowledge, then it's very easy to blow that budget because we have a lot of
Mhm.
fun, fancy things.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to say those are pretty. And then you see the final bill and you're like, oh, what just
Wait a minute.
exactly?
Yeah. Yeah, I think everybody listening has had one of those conversations where you get on a call, somebody's super excited, they seem like they know what they want, they ask all these questions, they're super excited. You send them a quote for 125K or something like that, and then they come back and they're like, "Oh gosh, I only have a budget of like $30,000." And
Yeah.
it's
And we,
frustrating, but it's so hard to like have that not not be frustrating because you didn't really get that expectation from them, but they know what they want, but they have no idea what it costs.
yeah. So that's one of the things that I've been working on personally for me is just controlling controllables. Especially, me, I'm someone who's very meticulous and picky about certain things. And so just working through like controlling what I can and the chaos can be what it is, but not letting it affect me has been really important. And I think it's kind of a superpower you develop because it's not their fault they don't know. And it's not their fault that contractors have in the past taken advantage of it. So you kind of understand those things. And the way I see it is it's not my job to tell you how to spend your money. It's my job to tell you what something actually costs, and then you get to decide.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've had clients put $150,000 in their backyard, and their house is only worth 200.
Mhm.
It made sense for them. They didn't want a bigger house. Da 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 da.
Yeah.
That specific client literally told me, we've had 3 other people tell us we don't want to do this, and wouldn't even give us a price. And I said,
Mm.
I'm just going to tell you what it costs. You get to pick how you spend your money.
Yeah. And I think that people appreciate that because it's a level of transparency that I think a lot of like I think that's one of the reasons that contractors get a bad rap is because we get lumped in with salespeople. And I think that when you have that trust built and when you work to establish that trust with people, you work to establish that kind of relationship where you're not just trying to sell them something, you're trying to figure out what they want and then give them what they want and it costs what it costs.
Yeah, you're
And
trying to solve
I
a
think,
problem.
yeah, people respond really well to that. So
100%.
moving from there into the next step. So, and shifting a little bit from like expectations to quality, but still staying in that same realm. So you've established what the client wants. You've gone either through a basic estimate process or a design process, and now you're at the point where you're signing a contract, taking a deposit, and scheduling somebody. Talk to me about what that whole part of the process looks like, from contract signing to shovel in the ground, and how you kind of both establish expectations with the client and then maintain that level of consistency and quality once it's done.
Sure. So step one, obviously, is going to be managing expectations again. That's going to be a common theme everywhere. So we're going to, especially with the design phase, that's one of the big reasons we do that, is because we're going to bring out every subcontractor that we work with. And as a entirely submodel company, that's every phase of the project except for small punch list stuff that a project manager might take care of. So we're going to bring every sub out. We're going to walk them through the job site. We're going to have plans on site for them to ask questions. We're going to get written bids. We're going to get ETAs and estimated completion times for them, so that before we ever break ground, we have a schedule built out that says, if things go to plan, we'll start on March 1st and we'll be done June 11th. But this is where expectations come in, and we're going to set the expectation that that is a perfect world. We don't live in perfect worlds. So we know we're going to get rain. We know we're going to have people that take longer than expected, or someone else's job. Maybe the plumber got stuck on a job for an extra day, and so they're a day late starting. Well, that day late starting could be as simple as everything gets pushed back one day, or it could be, well, the plumber did that, so the concrete guys have another job, so they're 3 days late. And because that's reality, unless the client wants to pay someone for that day of loss, which they never do, and they shouldn't, I get that, then those schedules kind of become uncontrollable to a small extent. We know they're
Yeah.
going to come back, but you can't expect someone to sit for days and not make money when they have work that they can go complete.
Yeah, it's I always used to refer to it as predictably unpredictable. Like it's one of those things where inevitably something's going to happen. How it actually affects the project is hard to predict, but you can almost guarantee that in a project of any significant size, something's going to go wrong. It might be something that causes an hour delay. It might be something that causes a week delay, and usually you don't know until it's happened.
Yeah. And so from that expectation, we're going to make sure that we're communicating as much as possible. We're going to make sure that project managers are having conversations. I really like pushing for phone calls or in person if someone is going to be home. But then we're always going to recap that with something in writing. Hey, this is the conversation we had. I'm just going to re-outline it so it's in writing. Correct me if I'm misremembering anything. That's a CYA thing. Cover your ass, because
Yep.
it's very easy to misremember details on both
Mhm.
sides, contractor
Yep.
and customer. 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 3 days later, everybody has a life. Everybody's super busy. And so if we make sure that those details are being documented, then we can make sure that everything is still in alignment with expectations as soon as possible.
Yeah. So something I'm curious about on this same thread is, I imagine you have a written SOP for what you expect your project manager, salesman, the person or the foreman on the job to do with that communication. But do you actually have a communication standard or something similar to that that's in your contract language? Or do you just discuss it with clients? Or how do you kind of train your clients of what they should expect if something does go wrong?
I don't have anything in my contract, mainly because we are not at a point, being completely transparent, we're not at a point that we're perfect.
Mhm.
And putting something in a contract just seems like it's extenuating liability for you.
Yeah. No, that's understandable. And that's kind of why I was curious about it, because like most contracts have like very obvious language about, if you want to cancel the contract, provide notice in writing. If you want a change order, the change order has to be in writing and approved by both client and contractor. And something I was talking with somebody else about the other day was, at what point does like communication expectations need to move from being an SOP to actually being in your contract? And I don't really know anybody that's doing that, because it does seem kind of like a potential liability, but it is an interesting thing to talk about too.
So two thoughts there, just shooting from the hip, because you and I haven't talked about that yet. One, my first thought is if you want me to guarantee that level of performance, I'm going to charge extra for it.
Totally fair.
And then on top of that, we are going to lay out exactly what you want, how you want, and when you want it by.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to get very granular in the level of detail that you're expecting, because the next part of that is I'm going to be very careful if I take that job, because that person seems like a liability and a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting. On the service side, I'm very used to working with property management companies. And I actually had a property management company last year that tried to include an adjustment to my contract that they wrote in that said if we didn't meet our estimated completion deadline, that we would have to pay a fee, like basically a forced discount off the final invoice. And I was feeling kind of feisty that day, so I actually crossed it out and I wrote, if we finish late, we will pay you X amount of dollars. If we finish early, you will pay an additional X amount of dollars and send it back. And the property manager called me and said, you know what? Never mind. We can skip that part.
Yeah.
And it's funny because sometimes like I think a lot of homeowners don't realize the contracts protect them and the contractor. Like they're not just one way or the other. But
Sure.
it's interesting how that kind of language could negatively impact one side and not the other, or vice versa.
Well, so that's probably something that you run into more than I do, but how many times have you had over the years that you've done this, someone be like, well, I don't want to pay the full price because you got done faster than you said you would?
It happens a lot more often in service than I think it does on the larger projects, because I think people, it's harder to say, okay, you had a 3-week project, you finished in 2 weeks and 4 days, I should get X amount of days off. But it is kind of common that like we charge somebody $800 for a roof cleaning. We say it's going to take 3 to 4 hours. We finish in 2, and they expect a discount. But we have it written in our contract that we're not giving a labor and materials estimate. We're giving you a fixed cost estimate. And I tell customers all the time on that phone call, if they call me and ask, I say, listen, if we had come out and the job had taken 6 hours, would you have expected me to charge you more? And they usually say no. And I say, well, that's the risk I take. As a contractor, the reason I do a fixed bid cost is because I want to be transparent with you, and I want you to know exactly what you're paying, whether it takes me 2 hours, 4 hours, or 6 hours. I just know, because we do 2,000 of these jobs a year, that the average is 3 to 4 hours. So yes, I'm going to have a couple of jobs that are longer and a couple of jobs that are shorter, but I know from data that the average is 4 hours. And
and that's kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah, and most clients understand.
Well, I think that again goes back to, it's just ignorance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, I'll say this because I say this all the time in normal conversations, but ignorance is not a derogatory term. It's just a lack of knowledge. And people who think ignorance is a derogatory term are ignorant of the definition of ignorance. And so it always cracks me up.
You should get that as a t-shirt.
Right?
Yeah. Well, like, it's true. And I think one of the reasons people think about it negatively is because ignorant people tend to use it as an excuse for underperformance or lack of understanding or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of makes it associated with being negative. But it really isn't. It's just, like you said before, when we were talking about initial sales, people don't know what they don't know. And it's not a bad thing. It's just true.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a place that we as a society could be better, right? And we won't go completely down this rabbit hole, but just being okay with not knowing everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it reminds me of a quote I saw recently that I thought was very powerful, which was that one of the most significant ways you can build confidence and be more confident is to admit that you don't know everything.
I've had people tell me they hired me over someone else because they asked a question I didn't know, and I said, I'm not sure, but I'll get the answer for you.
Exactly. And I think if you ask anybody who's an owner or manager or supervises employees, man, I will 100% of the time not be mad at an employee for coming and say, hey, I don't know how to do that. Can you show me? But man, if they say, yeah, no problem, I got that, and then they royally screw everything up, it drives me insane. Because it's like, why didn't you just tell me you didn't know?
Right.
And I'm sure the majority of clients feel the same way, where I think that if you admit to not knowing, but you'll get back to them and figure it out, it builds trust.
100%.
So,
all right, back to the original question.
I was going to say, we got a little bit sidetracked. I think it was a good side tangent, but so we're through design and sale process. We're through pre-construction. Now we're on the job. We touched a little bit on contracts and agreements and that kind of stuff. So moving into the next phase, when you are on the job and working, talk to me about how you maintain that communication, maintain that quality during the project until you finish.
Yep. So that's where JobTread comes in really big. JobTread's the project management software that we use. They have a feature called a daily log.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just make sure that we say that anytime progress is made on a job or a substantial change to the schedule occurs, we will communicate that via daily log.
Mm-hmm.
And I word it that way because there's going to be downtime, right? We, especially on longer, bigger projects, we plan some days, we give some buffer. Because back when I was talking about, well, if the plumber takes a day longer, then the concrete guy might push us off 3 or 4 days because he's doing a big pour. I want to make sure, okay, if that plumber does take a day, we had that day built in, the concrete guy is still going to come on time. And so because that schedule is laid out in JobTread and you can build it all out and the client has access to that, they can see, oh, why isn't anyone on my job site? Well, one, they should have got a daily log yesterday. Hey, the plumber's completed. Remember, tomorrow is a buffer day. We stayed on schedule, so this day is set for no one to be here. We'll be back on Tuesday or whatever. But then we don't need to on Tuesday if nothing changes. I don't need them going back and being like, okay, yep, they're still going to be here tomorrow. Nothing's happened today. Like I don't want to unnecessarily create communication, but I also word it that way so that if something happens and it rains on Tuesday, well, now the concrete guys might not be there until Thursday because they lost a day on that other site that they were supposed to be at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and something I'm curious about on that whole thread is, so you're saying your daily logs are primarily between you and clients. How much of that daily log is meant for your subs, employees, manager to give information back to you in the office versus them passing information to the
client? So we typically will, anything that's relevant to the client, we will put in a daily log. Mm-hmm. Anything that a client doesn't necessarily need to know, a really good example is like, hey, we had a hiccup. This put us back by 3 hours, but we still got done. Mm-hmm. I want to know that to make sure we can plan and not have that hiccup again. Mm-hmm. But there's no sense in telling the client that because the job stayed on schedule, it still got done correctly, and it would create unnecessary friction.
Yeah, you want to know that you want to know it for increasing efficiency and job costing, but it doesn't matter to the client.
Well, and I would argue that it doesn't bring any positive if they know. Mm-hmm. All it's going to do, one of two things is going to happen. Either one, the client's going to be really chill and be like, okay, cool. And then it was just an unnecessary communication for them. Or two, a client's going to get bent out of shape over something that isn't necessary. They don't need to get worked up if we still completed it, but we had to make an extra, the Lowe's closest to us didn't have what we needed, so we had to go to the one 45 minutes away. And the guys worked late and still got the job done, and it was still the same product. And everything that ended up being the same. It was 2 hours delayed.
Yeah, but it's not
That's
needed
not
for the
relevant.
client to know that and then start saying, "Oh, is that going to happen again tomorrow? Is this going to cause delays? Are we going to be late? Are we going to be on schedule?" And just go down a rabbit hole that's unnecessary.
Correct. I think we as contractors, we manage the projects, but managing is an all-encompassing conversation. It's managing the projects, it's managing subcontractors, it's managing in-house employees, it's managing expectations, but it's also managing client experience. And so obviously you never want to hide something that's going to affect the longevity of their project, something that is relevant to them. But it's like you and I met at 7:00 my time tonight. if I had gotten a flat tire 2 hours ago, but I still got it changed and got home and we were on time, it's not hiding it from you if I don't tell you that in conversation, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not lack of communication if the communication's unnecessary.
Yep.
Yeah. But if you say you're going to start at 9 and the crew gets a flat tire on the way there and they don't show up till noon, then it's the kind of time where you can text the client and say, "Hey, the crew had a flat tire. They'll be there at 11 or 12."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually a good thing you bring that up because we very much so have one point of contact on a job. So with a project manager, the crew is not calling the client. Whether it's when we had in-house employees or a subcontractor, they're not calling the client to tell them that they're running late. They are. Oh, that's a cat. I thought you had a chicken in your house for a minute.
Oh, no, that's my cat.
Okay, sorry.
No,
really thought that was a chicken, and I was like, "Why is there a chicken in your house?"
We're not going to cut this out because I think it's hilarious. But for all of you listening, I do have chickens outside.
I knew you did.
They don't come in my house.
Why? I was like, "Is Jackson open the door?"
No, the chickens are in a fenced-in coop outside. They do wander around sometimes, but they are not in the house.
Cool. But yeah, so that's the other thing is we like even if, and you've seen this, you used to do outdoor projects like me. Even when clients call me, hey, I don't know the answer, but I'll have my project manager get back to you. Yeah. Even if I know it, I will say that because you talk about training them. I want them to be well, and I want them to be trained that I am not their point of contact for this. You know, as we grow and we scale companies, we have to take hats off, and one of those hats has to be client communication. I still want to be available if my project manager is dropping the ball and they need to escalate, or you know, if I sold the project,
they're out sick for the day and the client can't get a hold of them, they know that you're going to back up plan.
But even in those instances, it's usually a group text that includes the project manager.
Mm-hmm. That way they're still in the loop.
Yep.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, well, I want to move on to the last part because we're getting run out of time. But talk to me about now the project's done. You're wrapping things up. Talk to me about final walkthrough, warranty, wrapping up everything in a nice bow, and moving on from there.
Sure. So when we get like 90% through, we are starting to ask for punch list stuff. We try and keep a running tally and knock out a lot of that stuff, especially because I require my project managers to be on site at least every other day that work is being performed. We try and do every day, but especially during busy season, if stuff comes up, I don't want to set that expectation. So we try and be there every other day. And so if there's little stuff like if a siding guy missed 2 nails to, paint over, well, I'm not going to make the siding guy come all the way back when the touch-up paint's sitting there and the PM it takes 30 seconds. So we'll try and do all those little punch list stuff. But sometimes the client doesn't. We train the client, like, don't correct us until we tell you it's done.
Yeah, that's an important distinction. Because then you end up with those people that have a roll of blue tape sitting in their garage and they blue tape half the project before the project's even done.
Yep. So we'll start to really push for, hey, are there things that most of this is done, this parts are done. Are you seeing anything that you want addressed? And we'll start to address that. So really, ideally, by the time we get to the final walkthrough, everything's done. And so we can walk through, we can go over how to operate stuff. We can go over use cases, we can go over maintenance, and then we're going to leave them, ask for a review, ask for the final payment. And then we aren't doing this yet, but what we're starting to implement with Stanek, the people who run our, I guess it'd be our CRM. Typically on the sales side is where most people see it, but it's also post-sale too. We're going to start having a warranty message go out. And so at 30 days, at 90 days, at 6 months, and at 12 months, they'll get a text that says, hey, we were thinking about you. Just want to make sure there's nothing going on with the project that needs our attention, especially at that 1 year mark, because 1 year is all our warranty technically covers. We want to know about it right then. And we want to, again, to be able to cover ourselves, we want to be able to show proof that we did reach out in writing in case someone ever were to come back and say we were negligent in that aspect. I will say on warranty, though, I'm pretty big on, again, doing what's right by the client. So if something's technically not under warranty anymore, but it's pretty obvious that it was a workmanship issue from a sub, or it's something small, but it keeps a client happy, we're going to go take care of it.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think a lot of contractors, they hear warranty and they're like, oh crap, I'm just losing money doing free work. But what they miss is a lot of times warranty calls are actually a time to do relationship building, follow up, and maybe get the bug in their ear for the next service they want afterwards.
We like warranty work in that aspect. Obviously, if there's like a legitimate quality issue, that's frustrating. But two things there. One, I can't address an issue unless I know about it. So if one of my subs or one of my team members did something poorly, I want to know so that one, I can apologize, and two, I can make sure it doesn't happen again. But also, you kind of touched on it. Me getting in the door again is a reason for them to talk about the next project they want, or for me to ask for referrals.
Yep.
You know, we'll walk through a project. I actually have a client that was very challenging through the project, mainly because her yard died, and we were doing this project in August, and like that's going to happen. The guys have to walk on the yard. We reseeded it, resodded it, did all that, but she was frustrated during the project. Go back a year later, that temper has had time to cool. She's had time for other client or other of her friends to come over and see the project and see how beautiful it is, and to gas her up about how cool it turned out. Dude, me getting back in and having that conversation got her to refer us to 2 or 3 more projects. And so, and it probably left a better taste in her mouth experience-wise, like, you know, it's not, oh, we're done with this project, we're frustrated. I kind of, I don't know that I would recommend him. But you come back when everything's awesome and remind exactly 100%. How great we are, that we want to be there, da-da-da-da. Well, now she remembers that good side. Oh, did you know a year after they did the project, they came and did another walkthrough just to make sure there weren't any issues? What company does that?
Yeah, and I think that those kind of relationships, those kind of reviews are what leave people wanting to refer you, because people remember how you started and how you finished. They don't remember that the guys were nice to them and polite and opened their door in the middle of the project. They remember the last interactions they had with you.
Right.
All right. Well, I think that about covers it. I think we're going to wind down and wrap up. So any last thoughts before we tie everything up and wind down?
No, my big thing lately has just been keep it simple. We talked about a lot of different things that you can implement, and if you're a smaller company, especially if you're a one-man show, do not try and implement all that at once.
Absolutely. Pick
Be
one
really
to 3.
good. Well, and I would say like make sure you're the same as we talk about, like, don't scale revenue until you have profit figured out. Don't scale services and intricacies until you have the base part figured.
100%.
Like, is it great to go to a walkthrough a year later? Yes. But if you're not asking for a review at the end of day one, like, let's make sure that your stuff's 100% punched out and you're getting a review. Because if there's a big issue, people will call you.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, like Treese said, we covered a lot. We're going to put some stuff down in the description as far as some notes and some little links to things that we're working on that go with all this stuff, and some example stuff for you guys to look at. Come check us out in our free Facebook group. We talk about this stuff and so many other things every day. And if you're listening to this as a podcast, come check us out on YouTube, and vice versa. This is going to be on YouTube. It's going to be on Apple and Spotify, and we'll be posting it in the Facebook group too. And we'd love to have you guys in our free community. You don't have to pay for it. It's free, and we just want to chat with you and network with you and other contractors that are trying to build and grow and scale as well. So thank you guys all for listening, and talk to you guys next time.